So tonight we're welcoming Inverclyde Time Teamers. I've already said I'm really looking forward to this because we did see it once, but you always miss something when you see things for the first time. And tonight we've got Alan Kinnaborough and Stephen McAllister, and who have been known to walk the hills around here. And I'm sure they'll give us a good presentation tonight. Okay? Thank you.
Well, thanks for the warm welcome, folks, and thanks for the invite to do the talk for you. So this is the third time we've actually delivered this. We've delivered it twice before. The last time we delivered it at the Walk Museum in front of a live audience. So this is the first time we delivered this in Zoom. So we'll do the introductions. We've been introduced already. So I'm Stephen McAllister. I'm with
Alan Kinnaborough.
So we're two of the collective of four. We've been going for about 3 years now. And the other two members you can see on the screen there would be Alistair McIntyre, who's tech guru extraordinaire. If you need a drone flown over something, or if you need software to look at details in the ground, he's the man to do that. Alan will tell you a wee bit more about Monty, as he's known. He's a good friend, Monty. So
yeah, so, Monty's a fourth member, and in terms of what he brings to the table, Monty's, if you're familiar with the concept of a social member at a golf club, that's a bit like Monty. He's not so much out in the hills with us, but he'll certainly come for a pint after and discuss what we've found. So that's more his side of things. But yeah, he's one of the kind of founding members, and he's good to have along for the crack. So
yeah, he has been out innings, and he's been with us since the early days, really. So yeah, he's definitely part of the team. So tonight's story then is the complete Loch Thom story. It's not just a story about Loch Thom itself. It's more about Loch Thom and the surrounding area, and the sort of changes through thousands of years, and sort of more recently over the last couple of centuries. Okay, so that's really what's coming up tonight. So really the story starts with, this is a couple of summers back, Loch Thom and Scottish Water had decided to commit to quite a serious maintenance project. The file that was quoted originally, I think, was £7 million in maintenance, but I think they went well over that. And to do this once in 80 to 100 year maintenance, what they had to do was lower the level in the loch to something close to the record lows. The record lows, we reckon, are going back to the Great Drought of 72. And we were hopeful, not last summer, but the summer before, that we'd maybe get close to that. And this is really our first major project where we decided to, commit serious time to having a look around the bed of Loch Thom to see what we could find there, knowing that this is like going to be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to look for stuff there. So the lots of the loch bed were exposed for extended periods of time, not just for the first summer, but also the last summer too. And we managed to find a lot of stuff as a result. The first part of the story starts off with these would be sort of fishermen that would frequent Loch Thom quite a lot, Greenock District Club to be more specific. And we'd been out looking for other things before we started to do some work in Loch Thom. And a story came our way about someone called Lawrence Virtue. And apparently a grave had been found some time ago. And we were asked if we could maybe look into it and locate it and find out if it was indeed a grave or something else. So that was really the start of our sort of love affair, if you like, with Loch Thom, and the Loch Thom story kicked off from there. And I was going to tell you about that.
So what you can see on your screen here is a picture of what we call the grave. So it's hard to get the exact size of it there, but you're looking at something about 7 feet long. So the internal area there, about 7 feet long by roughly about 2.5 feet wide. So it is like kind of perfect human body size there. So we went and had a look at it, thought it looked really interesting. Started to wonder what else aside for the grave could be there, and decided what we were going to try and do to try and progress it, to try and get some sort of investigation into some research into trying to get it identified and maybe get it categorised.
Well, from there, the next step should after that to move on just looking at what the grave might be, and we did keep an open mind thinking, well, it might not be a grave, and we didn't want to jump to early conclusions. So we started to look at what had been going on around that site, even long before Loch Thom was under construction, or had been built. So we started to look at National Library of Scotland maps predating the construction of the loch. We made contact with WOSAS, that's the West of Scotland Archaeological Society, to find out if they had maybe been pinged or hailed about this before. We also got in touch with Inverclyde Planning Department, because they had actually disengaged from West of Scotland Archaeological Society, and they had absorbed the records back, locally. We also had some involvement with Scottish Water through the council as well. And at one point they were considering a possible professional archaeological survey. Whilst we were doing this, we were posting on various pages, and just to try and find out if anyone else had maybe heard about this grave before. And we did get some input from an archaeologist on the page, and he gave us his own thoughts on what it might have been. So over to Alan here.
The reason it was so hard for us to try and identify it positively and try and put a date on it ourselves without engaging with professionals, because at the end of the day we are just amateurs. There's quite a lot of stuff we can recognise, but with something like that, given just the sheer period of the material up there covering different periods of time, it was going to be too hard for us to identify ourselves. And then just to kind of illustrate that, what you're looking at there is the area of Loch Thom. So this is Canmore entries. So this is the West of Scotland, beg your pardon. It's
a screenshot of the Canmore map for Loch Thom, and every blue dot there would be something of archaeological interest. So it could be, an old farmstead and a hut circle or something like that. So you can see that the area is already densely packed with things.
Yeah. So what was trying to think there? So Canmore is the website that's owned and maintained by Historic Environment Scotland. So this is their permanent record of anything that's of archaeological interest there. And as Stephen said, every single one of those blue dots is something of significance or interest. The period there you're looking at comes from probably the last 30 years back to prehistory. So there's entries there that are going back to the Bronze Age, Iron Age. There's entries there that are going to take you through the Roman period. There's medieval farmsteads on there as well, and there's post-medieval. So just try to identify exactly what that structure was going to be pretty hard based on that. So, and to say that there is just an illustration of just how many notes of interest there are in the surrounding area, and from all different periods of time.
So we managed to get some traction with the planning department at the council. So they, to their credit, they actually come up with the wellies on and the clipboard, and I said, we said you better come up and get a look at this thing, which they did. So they took photos of it, marked the location, that they had me lying down against it for scale. So as you can see, it is the length of me and the width of me. I can tell you now that wasn't a particularly comfortable spot to be lying down. By this point, we'd also been in touch with Historic Environment Scotland, and we decided to sweep around Loch Thom as the whole thing rather than just concentrate on the grave, because if this had turned up, we thought there'd be other things maybe around that are worth investigating. So over to Alan.
Yeah. So what we can see here is part of the old. This is the oldest existing map I've got of Renfrewshire and the surrounding area. So this map dates back to somewhere between 1580 and 1600. And some of the farmsteads and some of the entries that you can see around there are what we have on the surrounding area. So we've got proximity to a farmstead called Hollow House or Falla House. It was later renamed. So you're talking about just slightly post-medieval farm, but that's the oldest record we've got, or it could possibly date back to even further than there. Also in that immediate area as well of the loch, where the grave is situated. There was there was a flint arrowhead found, which dates back to kind of Bronze Age, Iron Age type. And we've also got proximity to burial cairns that were dated from that same Bronze Age, Iron Age period. So once again, trying to put a date on this pretty hard, but again, the sheer obviously you've got a Roman road that would pass within that area there as well, so a whole load of periods there to try and cover as well. This one here is going to show us some of the farms, so some of them might be familiar to you as well, particularly Shaws. So Shaws water, that curly line that's curling down to the left there, that's actually Shaws water course, so that flows from Rottenburn to the south, or Rottenburn to the south, and round and down through Shahill Glen. So that's actually the water course that was dammed up, that formed Loch Thom, where this Rogers Floor farm is at, being in place where we have a Garvock farm and ruins just now. So just up from that is the Hull House farm, which we can't locate anymore, but that's round about the area of the grave. And then moving round, you've got Shaws, which is in ruins on the shore, and Hillside moving round, which is a ruin not too far from the Loch Thom Visitor Centre.
Okay, so moving on through the years. So on the left, you can see that Hollow Hills Farm has become Fallow Hills Farm. And on the right, so this is sort of just, prior to the construction of Loch Thom, we've got a kind of swelling water course here. Fallow Hills is there now. So we've lost the name Hollow Hills, and it's sort of firmly become Fallow Hills. Rogerston Farm is now Garvock, you can see, which is now the farm in ruins just beside Loch Thom. So we're just looking at the evolution and the sort of change in names. Okay, we've now got the Shaws River rather than Shaws Water, so it's just a build up to construction of Loch Thom. Here now we have, this would be 1826. What we can do is point with our laser pointers. So you can see on the right hand side Goat Craigs, which is a sort of natural sort of raised kind of hill, if you like, a natural feature. By this point, Fallow Hills Farm is away, but there is a structure, a wee sort of rectangular black block there, which we believe is an attempt by the owners of the farmstead, Fallow Hills, to relocate and move away because they expected the water levels to encroach on where the farm is, which it did do. So we've now got a swelling water course, which is basically, the start of Loch Thom filling up to become what we would recognise as Loch Thom today. We got a bit curious about Fallow Hills Farm and what happened to that. Now, the maps here, you can look at that, it's very, very crude. And sometimes I've had to use imagination trying to figure out where these things are in relation to each other. But just at the point where you come around the Dogleg on the southeast side of Loch Thom, and then you start to leave Loch Thom in the forest there, we found a LiDAR anomaly. So LiDAR would be sort of 3D scanning the ground using lasers. And there is a wee kind of hint of structure there, and we believe that is the remains of Fallow Hills Farm. So we've found the farmstead, although in there it's quite sort of overgrown, and it's because it's forested that it would be hard to find sort of tangible elements of structure to photograph, but we reckon it's in there, so we did find that too. Okay, so the bigger picture. So this is a satellite image of the area around the graves, and these are annotated. So we've got grave one on the bottom left-hand side, which is the first grave that we were asked to look for. And we've got the Arrowhead find, which is literally sort of 50 yards away, or so, 50, 60 yards away, sort of northeast. And then to the north of that, we found another strange collection of stones, which was maybe potentially a second grave. So if we move on there, which looks like that. So I'm going to talk to you about this pile of stones.
Yeah, so this was something that we caught our eye when we started doing the sweep of the shore once the water lines had receded. Just to give you an idea, this thing's probably about 3 or 4 feet underwater usually, so it's very rare for it. You need a kind of a real year of drought before something like this surfaces. But yeah, when we're walking down, this kind of stood out a mile away from what was lying about on the rest of the shore. we've seen, if I do just fast forward to that, so we've seen a lot of this kind of structure here. So this was like your typical kind of clearance cairn. So when they were given the land over to agriculture, and they came across stones in the fields when they were ploughing, they would gather stones together and kind of put them haphazard in a corner. And we just classed them as clearance cairns. And we came across a load of them on the bed of Loch Thom. This thing, if we look back, this thing is very, very different. So it was made from, it was placed together with very, very similar stones. It was about 5 feet in length by about 2 feet, so not quite the size of a full human. So we're considered it possibly, if it was a burial, we didn't excavate it because we wouldn't dream of doing that because we're not archaeologists. But we kind of surmised it possibly could have been the body of a child, or possibly the body of an animal that somebody had put there. But you can see the way it's put together with flat stone placed down very deliberately, and again very much in a conformant manner, to be something that certainly not natural and certainly not haphazard like that. So yeah, that was one of the things that really kind of took our interest in. So we termed that grave 2, grave 1, grave 2.
But again, trying to sort of reconcile the graves with what they might have belonged to, we again return to the old maps. So the closest structure to grave 2 annotated in any map is the old boathouse. Now, you can't sail boats to Loch Thom now because it's a water supply for the town, but back in 1870 you could, and there's a boathouse there on the map to prove that. So we actually went looking to see if we could find the boathouse and look at the location of the boathouse versus the grave. Maybe thinking that the grave could have been the part of the boathouse, but they're too far apart. The boathouse is away at the sort of north end of the kind of diagram and the map, as you can see. Grave 2 is much further down nearer where the spring area is there. So we could just exclude it wasn't part of the old boathouse, really, for a start. Again, the Arrowhead find that was mentioned, so this is a story much closer to home than I expected. So this is found in 1959, literally just yards away from the grave, which is interesting in itself. So found by Larry Scanlon, who was a fireman in 1959, and trying to find out a wee bit more about Larry Scanlon. I had a chat with my grandfather, who was also a firefighter, who's now retired in his 90s, and he said, "Oh yeah, well, I knew Larry Scanlon, he was my friend." So over a pasta dinner, he was able to fill in a lot of gaps about Larry Scanlon and the Arrowhead find, and apparently that was down at the local fire station getting passed around as a thing to look at, and we've actually seen it. It's quite a thing to see. It's in the Walk with Fame Museum. Actually, we've both seen it. That's their own photograph there. Okay, again, the bigger picture here. So we're coming further out. So the island, which is on the left-hand side there, where which is close to the grave, we're zooming out a wee bit, and we're looking at other things around that area. So on the right-hand side, in the green sort of there, it's annotated with trees. That's all forested now. Many, many years ago, thousands of years ago, that was probably the busiest and most densely packed prehistoric settlement. You can see hut circle and enclosure annotated in there. A lot of this is lost in the area it was forested in the 70s. To the south as well, you can see cairn marks and annotated. The font is antiquarian font. It's like the old font, and quite often if you see that font, it's because it's something of historical or archaeological interest. The cairn at the bottom there is a burial cairn. It's the Bronze Age burial cairn. And so again, the proximity to all of these things sort of kept things interesting regarding what the grave could be, possible link to these other older settlements and burials. So
yeah, so again, this is our friend LiDAR. So this is a laser scanned image of the terrain around the burial cairn. So if you look at it, it's got a kind of donut type appearance. So normally the cairn would have been a mound, a perfectly formed mound. But what's happened here is somebody has recognised the cairn as a burial site and had a go at excavating to try and see if there was anything valuable in there, which is probably kind of folly, because what was valuable to our ancestors back in kind of 2,000 or 3,000 BC would have been flint objects or flint scraping tools, possibly for jewellery, beads, rounded beads or stuff like that. But whoever's had a go at that has thought ancient burial valuables possibly worth something today. But that's why it's got that scooped out appearance. So that's why it appears with a donut. If you're actually physically up at it, that scoop in that hole, if you like, where they've dug down is very much to the fore. You can spot it a mile away. And just interestingly, these burial cairns, the way the structure of them is, at the bottom of the cairn, they would form a chamber. So you would have like a chamber with a capstone to protect the remains of the body, and then they would build the cairn over the top of it. A good example of that, of what it looks like underneath, is the Haley cairn down in Largs, which has been excavated, and all that's left down there is the capstones if you ever get a chance to take down and look at it. But the interesting thing that Louis Pasteur, Louis was doing this thing years before us, and sadly Louis passed away far too young an age, just a few years ago. But he surmised that the hollow structure of the cairn to form these hollow burial chambers might have given the name to the farm. So effectively a burial cairn was a hollow hill, and the proximity of the farm to that, these cairns that were round about, might have given over to the name, which I think is a pretty good theory. So this is quite exciting. We're not going to dwell too much on it because we could do a whole presentation about this ourselves. So when we did start looking about the area, and we never thought we were going to get this lucky, because we found a whole lot of prehistoric stuff, particularly hut circles and enclosures and stuff like that. But we actually found our own burial cairn. So up close to the Overton Trig marker, we found a Beaker Age burial. It's possibly a 2-stage burial cairn, which is very rare as well. I think the closest one is Aberdeen, which effectively what it is a cairn above a cairn. We started searching an area where there was a prehistoric enclosure that had already been recorded. So and started thinking, what else is going to be there? Usually you don't find these things in isolation. So we found something that looked very, very similar to the cairn that had been identified down at Goat Craigs, and we were certain it was another Bronze Age burial cairn. So we engaged Historic Environment Scotland, and they've 100% verified that what we thought it was. So don't want to play it down too much, but it's because we'd rather probably do a whole presentation on.
Yeah,
do a whole
that's
presentation
a whole talk,
on
okay,
it.
But
we're going to do that another time. But yeah, so we did manage to find our own Bronze Age burial cairn, and it was a huge thing for us. It's still probably easily our best find, I would say, most important find. It's probably not been found for 50 to 70 years or something like that, round about here, and then probably hundreds of years before that, there hadn't been anything identified. Again, just to illustrate the sort of thing that we're looking at on the LiDAR there, just below the crosshairs, you can see the kind of circular image of a prehistoric roundhouse. So that's the sort of thing the sort of maps we would look over to try and help us identify anomalies that we would then go and physically go and look at. So that's how we managed to find our burial cairn.
Okay, so we're now moving around Loch Thom in a sort of just about an anti-clockwise fashion. So we're moving east away from the island. This surface is not every summer, but most summers. You've got a bit of a causeway track running northeast from just a wee bit beyond the island. And looking at the old maps, we reckon this is the original pre-1870 boundary road for Loch Thom, what we called the old Largs Road. They actually raised the water level in Loch Thom after it was constructed. So 1827 it was constructed, and then they raised the water level in 1870, and the original boundary road was submerged after that. Here's another look along the road. So you can literally walk all the way across that if the water's low enough. Any Fallow House Farm that we talked about, if you literally walk along that road and go over the wall into the forest, you'll be standing on top of what would be the new site for Fallow House Farm, I reckon. So it was taken 2007, but let's say most summers it does show up.
Again, this is just us going back to the map in 1857. So this was the second. Sorry, beg your pardon. This was the first ordnance survey that was taken of the area. So this shows the road that we're looking along. That's that road that's running northeast there from the island. And if I can just I can just look now. So that's us actually looking at the same area. So if we're looking at the south of the picture there, and then up the east-hand side, that's actually the new section of road that was built to accommodate. So when they built this, when they built the dam in that corner, that increased the water levels from the 1827 levels up to the 1870 levels. And when that happened, that put, if you can just see the difference there in that corner, that put this road underwater. So if you just look along the red dots there, that's the old section of road that went underwater, and that's that section of road that you can see running along there. And it also turned the island there, so that the promontory you can see down the bottom left there, sticking out into the loch. That's now what we know as Bird Island. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So so Alan's covered that there. So that's just the red dots mark the road there, which is now submerged, the original boundary road. Yeah.
So this is going to be quite topical, actually. So again, this is just looking just beyond Bird Island. So Bird Island's just up the extreme left-hand side there, just sticking into the loch again. So just moving along the start of the road there. Again, this is on one of the very old Ordnance Survey maps. And if you just kind of zoom in here, everything on the map's not an accident. So there's actually a tiny detail on there. So if we're looking at the kind of pool area, just slightly to the left on the road of the G36 marking, you can see a small black dot running along the road, which you might think was just like a kind of mark on the drawing. It wasn't. So if you go to that spot now, you come across this. So this was a culvert or a drain that ran underneath the old section of the old Largs Road. You had water coming in and running off the hill into this, where it says G36 there. And rather than flood the road, this is one of the kind of flashpoints. What they did to alleviate the flooding was built this culvert. And what amused us was once the water levels on the loch went down, when it did start raining again and the water levels started coming back up, this drain worked absolutely 100% perfectly. We were just laughing. I mean, just look at last night, we had about 20 minutes worth of rain. These guys had it sussed a few hundred years ago, exactly what to do with the water. Sorry. Beg your pardon. Yeah, again, this is just some other stuff that we kind of discovered in the loch. So this is us at the corner of the loch, again. So we are looking back, northwest. On the kind of extreme left-hand side, in the middle of the picture, you can see Bird Island, and just in front of that, that's that kind of thin strip. That's the section of the old Largs Road that went underwater. But this is just one of the things that we noticed on the bed of the loch and to do with the construction. So this is where they built, around this corner here where we're looking, or standing, this is where they built the new section of the dam wall, and that forced them to build a new section of the road. So we noticed this very kind of straight, very linear, straight feature running towards the water. So nature doesn't usually do straight lines, so it was there for a reason. So we we've done a wee bit of investigation as to what we thought that was as well. And again, once it's kind of started raining, it became 100% clear as to what that was. So down at this corner, when we were building the dam wall, there was a lot of kind of natural springs there, and also there was other small rivulets kind of running off the road, and there were culverts created to run underneath the new section of the old Largs Road. So you don't want to be building a dam wall when this place is soaked. So what that cut, if you like, on the water, on the loch bed did, was very efficiently took water away from that area and ran it down into that section of the old Largs Road. But they actually bleached the old Largs Road to allow the water to run out, but that cut was very, very deliberately put there. So we managed to work out what that was as well, which was strangely satisfying.
Okay, so we're moving north from the southeast side of the loch. So this wee section of structure here, again, we've got very, very straight lines, piled up stone. I reckon this is the original pre-1870 dam wall for Loch Thom. And it was bleached to allow the water through, test the second, phase of construction in the dam wall there. So that this is us looking along it just about north here. And if we flip around, that's the view back towards sort of just about southeast. You can actually see in the left-hand side where the breached the first dam wall to allow the water through, probably to do some testing in the second phase of construction to make sure it was sound, really. So, but we were happy enough with those finds. But as we got round to the Killiken side of Loch Thom, we came across this. So again, straight lines, perfect circles, nature doesn't generally do. And you can see we've got a circular pile of stones here, and we've seen things like this before. So this has been verified as a prehistoric Iron Age roundhouse. The drone shot, Alistair got some fantastic footage from above, and I was going to tell you a wee bit about kind of features maybe you can spy from this.
Yeah, so if you're looking kind of south to southeast on there, you'll see a breach in the stone. This is very much a deliberate feature. So you had your solid kind of foundations all the way through, and then to your southeast you had southeast you had a breach in the stone, and this was your entrance. And this is because the prevailing winds come from the west or northwest, so they built their entrances to the southeast, just purely to keep you warm. This was pretty typical of
so this
Atlantic.
Atlantic. There's a change. So the breaks in the outline tend to be on the east side for the older Bronze Age structures from about sort of 3000 BC or so. And then there's a shift, the change, as we move into the Iron Age, and it's on the southeast side. And that's an identifying feature, so that you only find them in Scotland, actually, the North Atlantic roundhouses, Iron Age, anyway. So I'll move that on there. So,
and so this is us looking in the centre of the structure, so centre of the hut circle, the house. And what we've got here is we've got a very small fire pit, which we reckon must be the oldest fireplace in Inverclyde. So it was quite interesting to find that in the middle there as well.
And here's how it would have looked back in the day. This is actually a reconstruction of one down in Wales, actually. So you would have had sort of your kind of stone footings, quite often with poles hammered into the ground, with a sort of lattice kind of network watling daub, for the walls and a thatched roof. So around the time that the news broke that we'd found this, we got quite a lot of folk asking if you could, come and see it, and folk were starting to go out to look for these things, and were either not finding them or they were getting themselves lost. So we decided to offer to take folk out on tours, and that's when the tours became a thing for us. So we don't get an exact date window for this, or a precise date. We get a date window from about sort of 800 BC to 500 AD. You need to do carbon dating to get a specific date, for it. But you've got a time window, if you like, for when the structure was, a complete thing. People were living in it. we thought that that was going to be your one chance to find a hut circle, but fortunate for us, we were actually good enough at finding them that we're now on number 16 or 17. So we've found lots of them. There's a whole scatter of them around Whiteleys and Darndaff Moor. There's a story which is a whole separate presentation about the long lost Coldside hut circle, which we managed to solve and complete a few records. A few around the H reservoir, around the number 4 reservoir as well, near the cut locally, and around Hardridge Plantation in Kilmacombe. We've found a whole load of these as well, so that there are lots of them. It was a nice place to live during prehistoric times by lots of it, Inverclyde and the surrounding area.
So yeah, just to get back to well, requests for tours. So we do the tours fairly regularly. I think we've done about 15 or 20 now, up to something like that. But one of our first tours and one of the first requests for a tour was we took out Sir Ludo Shaw Stewart and his partner by request. Obviously, he had a big interest in the area. His, don't know how far we've got to go back, but great grandfather, something like that, that commissioned the building of Loch Thom to. Yeah, so him and a few friends helped put the money together and commissioned Robert Thom to build the log. So there was obviously a great interest in it from him. And another thing which we'll go into as well is we wanted to see the remains of Shaw's farm, which we managed to find as well. So him being a Shaw Stewart, there was probably a connection there as well. So yeah, we had a great day out with Ludo and his partner. He seemed to really enjoy it. So I just mentioned there Shaw's farm and the connection he had with it as well. So just going back to the road, probably is what made us kind of think about this. So again, this is the Ordnance Survey map from 1857. So this kind of shows the ruins of Shaw's farm on the shores of Loch Thom. It's showing it as a ruin. So we'd been kind of around, stomping about the area, trying to find if there was anything left of it, and kind of scratching our heads and wondering why there wasn't any remains of it at all. But then we realised, as we started to gain more knowledge of Loch Thom and how it was constructed, and when we've worked out when the road emerged and how that was usually underwater. So that this is from 1857, first construction was 1827, and then the water levels went up in 1870. So it stood to reason that if we were going to find anything of Shaw's farm, when they built that dam in 1870, it put the water levels up and it was going to throw anything that remained to Shaw's farm underwater. So with that knowledge, we took a trip up and started walking the shores again. The water levels went down, gave us the ideal opportunity, and sure enough, we managed to find the remains of Shaw's farm. So it's just the foundation remains of one of the main buildings there. So these things look better in real life when you're at them than they do in there. But what you've got is about a 10-metre section of wall running away from the bottom left corner down towards the water. And then you've got about a 5-metre section of wall moving to the right, forming a right angle. The right-hand wall and the bottom wall, they look as if they've been robbed out, so the stone's been used for repurposed for something like that. There's some the remains that are there on the left wall there and the top wall, they're pretty huge. But the other thing that kind of confirmed in it as well is if you get inside the actual building itself, there's some really well preserved and quite well put together flagstones on the floor that have been made up the internal floor of the farm. So if you just scraped some of the shingle off there and we're able to confirm that. So yeah, we're definitely looking at Shaw's farm there.
So we started to look into Shaw's farm and we found this lovely painting. So this is actually in the Loch McLean Museum, and we've had a look at that as well. So if you look at the painting here, you can learn a lot from an Ordnance Survey map, but the painting also reveals a lot about what was going on at this point in time, and it points to a date as well for when the painting was done. So we've got a farm, but if you look at the roofs, the thatched roof of the buildings there, they're very green looking, as if there's a lot of moss in there. So it looks as though by this point, Shaws is a ruin. It's been left. It's not occupied anymore. There's also sagging in the roof as well, and also for a farm. Although there's someone in a boat there in the foreground, there doesn't seem to be any farm animals around. No one seems to be working the farm, so it's basically been abandoned by this point. If we just one wee kind of note, the trees, we wondered if the trees were actually put in as a sort of artistic thing, but we heard that one of these trees was still standing until the 60s, apparently, and was known as Shaw's Tree, and it was a lightning strike that put paid to it, so it was much more forested back in the sort of 1800s, right enough then. In the background, you can actually see Killickend's farm just about, the roof of it anyway, at least. But taking the story further, we actually looked into the artist that painted Shaw's farm. I actually managed to find the grave of the artist. It was Mr. Archibald McVicker, and he was a gilder. He had a business in Bank Street, and when he retired, decided to take up painting. And for the last 10 years of his life was a painter until he passed away. And his gravestone is quite a thing to see. And we reckon that he's had some artistic friends actually do the kind of rendering of his face. It had huge lamb chop sideburns, which I think his peers would have been quite envious of. So yeah, that was nice to kind of find that as well as another wee piece of the story.
So again, if you look just like almost exactly in the centre of the image so that's a satellite image of Shaw's farm, so you can probably see it a wee bit clearer there. You can see the wall to the north, and then the eastern wall kind of sloping down towards the water on the beach there. So that's definitely the range of Shaw's farm. And if you look across as well, if you're on almost a kind of a straight line along that northern wall, moving west onto the shore, you can see a kind of small pock mark, just kind of in the centre of a green area, like kind of a small depression. I don't know if you guys can see that, but again, if I go back to the original image of Shaw's farm here, if you take the building that's closest to the water there and run along to the left, you're going to come to it's almost in line with something marked well. And if I go back onto that modern image again, you follow that same line across, you'll actually see the remains of the well. It's been filled in now, but it's left that kind of pock mark as well. So again, that confirmed 100% that we could almost see 100% of the building on that map was that was one of the buildings that we're looking at there as well. Again, there's just a kind of closer image of it there, so you can see the very much the kind of clear image of the wall on the east and the north there.
Okay, so moving further down the loch, we're watching this bit of land grow by the day, and this massive cairn was sitting on top of it, and we were quite curious about that and what it could be. And obviously, when you think about cairns, you think about burials. It was the ground around there was absolutely horrible. I can tell you if you've seen any footage on the page, you'll see that we had, it wasn't going to be a prospect for getting out there. We did manage to get a close pass with the drone to get photos of it, and it certainly would have been too dangerous to visit and try and get near it. We did a talk first time around, and we were fortunate enough to get a chat with one of the senior members, John Robertson, who's a good age but still in fine fettle, and he was able to tell us about his cairn, because he had built a cairn in 1972 during the Great Drought of 72, and he said that the weather was so hot that the fishing was killed stone dead and they had to find other things to do. So he and his buddies built the cairn. They had a flagpole on it with a flag by all accounts, and one of his buddies actually got stuck in the mud trying to get back. So it just reinforced us that the whole, the kind of wise choice and not trying to venture out. But at one point it'd be nice for us to get out there to put a flag on it, and we've now christened it the John Robertson cairn. So, but it wasn't a burial. So moving on.
So looking at taking the story of Loch Thom a bit to a different kind of period in time now. So we've always been kind of aware that there was a Roman road that ran through the area of Loch Thom, so that kind of obviously piqued our interest as well. Once we'd done the kind of full survey of it all around the shore and found everything that we thought we could find, by this time the water levels were starting to rise again, so we're high water mark of the low water mark, if you like, came and gone. So we started kind of extending things out a bit to see what else we could find down there. So we'd read about Frank Yule, the archaeologist, who discovered that there was a Roman road and patrol track running around Loch Thom, which ran from Lordmoor and through Loch Thom and all the way down to Outerwards Farm down in Largs. So that was the next thing that we've turned our attention to try and nail down and identify and record some of the sections of that, which we've managed to successfully do. So we've also engaged, along with this, Historic Environment Scotland, who'd taken an interest in this as well. They've taken an interest in all the stuff we've done. In fact, they were talking about getting some trainees down to come out and come out with us and look at some of the stuff that we've found as part of their training as well, which was quite an endorsement of what we've been doing.
But the last image showing you the road running through Loch Thom should be taken with a pinch of salt. This is probably closer to the route that the road would have taken. It's more of a curved path, which made us chuckle because the Romans, famous for their straight lines and straight roads, came to Scotland in Inverclyde, and then they had to learn how to go around things like peat bogs and hills. And I'm fairly sure there were a few interested letters back to the Emperor to say, we're going to have to use curves for the first time, dear Emperor. So that we've got a curved line running quite close to the island. This is from our observations, so this is from parts of the road that we've found and seen. And the reason why they were doing that is because there was a horrible peat bog next to the cairns that we showed you in the slides before. This is sort of typical of what you would see if you're out walking across the open moorland and you were walking across a Roman road. So this has actually been visited by, again, Historic Environment of Scotland, and this, has been given thumbs up as, this does look to be a section of the road. It varies from place to place. Some are more obvious than others, and you do get fuel boundaries showing up as false friends. So this is one section close to Old Bars Road heading down towards the H Reservoir, and it splits down there into a patrol track on the main road. We also we weren't just going looking for this stuff, kind of haphazard. So our old friend and archaeologist Frank Yule had recorded several sections of the road at various points in the loch. Most of them were markers where they were under the water line. So again, this gave us a great opportunity to go and try and find some of the stuff that was usually under the water when the water levels were low again. So at one of the points that he'd identified, we came across this where he described a cambered section of road with metaling and clay. And right at this point, we found this exiting the loch. So this was what Frank Yule had identified as the section of the Roman road, which is usually underwater, exiting Loch Thom. And again, it's that's it looking kind of running down towards the loch. If you follow the kind of line of it, it was moving towards just off Bird Island. So again, if you're following a straight line there, you're probably going to hit Bird Island. So more evidence again that it did kind of follow a bit of a curve. And we reckon just to do that, it was purely just because of the ground, the marsh ground and etc. They wouldn't have, sometimes it would have been probably nigh on impossible to get it going this straight line. So it kind of followed a curve round from there. So looking at the existing camo rentals for Frank Yule's Roman roads, there was a section not far away from the Routenburn Bridge that we went looking for in the first summer that we were looking at Loch Thom, and we couldn't see it. And the reason for that was because it was still underwater, and we were lucky that the following summer that the water levels went down even lower again. And we were watching literally just about a daily basis, expecting this road to appear. And sure enough, our patience was rewarded because it did in August sort of 21. And it was there for literally 2 weeks. I'm just going to show you the other shots as we pan through. You can see we've got very defined lines in the clay, uniform width, again, straight lines in nature. Looking along it, you can see you've got a definite line on the left and right, and it does follow a line that ties in with the suggested or probable route. So within a fortnight, this is all overgrown with grass. There were sheep down there grazing. So literally, we reckon these are the only photos in existence of that section of road, and we don't know when we'll appear again. So we have the only kind of proof that the road is there, right enough.
Again, looking along the kind of route of the proposed Roman road, we tried to look at satellite imagery to try and see if we could find anything else. So in close to the route of where it was, when we looked at satellite imagery, it threw up anomaly that we could see, so we could see a kind of uniform line of something that they thought merited some inspection. So we went down to try and basically take a closer look and wheel in hand to look to see what this was. But when we got there, although it followed the proposed route of the Roman road down towards down at Killock End Burn, when we got closer to it, it turned out it was a kind of collapsed, more of a very old collapsed boundary wall. But people are interested in the boundary wall itself because it didn't seem to be forming. So usually when you get boundary walls, they're going to map out kind of rectangular or square, or that they're going to kind of surround fields and stuff like that. Now this boundary wall for some reason didn't conform to that. It was going whatever way it was going. It was going there. And it was going through burns and it was going over fields and it was going, but it didn't seem to be kind of surrounding anything. So it kind of piqued our interest as well. So we decided to follow it to see what was happening with it and to see where it was going. So we've got this section here that ran down through Yates Reservoir, right into it actually. So obviously it predated the construction of Yates Reservoir in 1870. So we knew it was pretty old, but we still couldn't find out. We still didn't know exactly what it was.
And then following it north, we're happy to send down towards the Cut now, and then towards Pennyfern. It runs down through the Spring Dam and across to Holborn before we kind of lose it here. And I will tell you why, look at what it is.
So eventually, once it runs off the Cut, it falls down a series of burns. And then when we did eventually establish what it was, we realised that it would have ran up Grieve Road area and then down towards Fort Matilda area and then into Cardwell Bay. So I don't know if you've ever been walking along Cardwell Bay, but if just right at Cardwell Bay where the Battery Park joins Cardwell Bay, you'll see a structure running out into the sea, which we've put on the dotted lines there. And what we discovered by following the boundary and looking back through old boundaries, so what the wall was the marker for the old parish boundary. So it was a boundary wall that they built that separated the boundaries of, what follows me when you got towards Loch Thom. It's the boundary between Greenock Parish, Inverclyde Parish, and Kilmacombe Parish, and parish of Largs as well. So this boundary wall was built all the way around. So obviously Grieve Road there now. A lot of the time the boundary wall follows will use water courses, so there's not actually a wall there. But wherever there isn't a water course, there was a wall. So we reckon, I can't prove it, but we reckon that this wall would have definitely ran up through, up and through and along Grieve Road, all the way up to the Cut. Because it's certainly, once you get up to Loch Thom, there's miles upon miles of it the whole way around the boundaries, kind of Inverclyde to Largs. So there's the one that we kind of followed all the way around, bordering Kilmacombe as well. So that was a wee interesting point. But yeah, this is just a kind of one of the kind of visible points of it. They built the wall all the way out to Cardwell Bay to signify that boundary between the parish of Greenock and the parish of Inverclyde.
So we reckon that the boundary wall was actually built over that section of the Roman road, and which makes sense because it would have been a good sort of base for building a wall, and then maybe use the stone. as well.
Yeah. And again, this is just an older map of before the battery park was built. So you can see there where it says, underneath where it says Mariners, was they've done a bit of a land grab to get it back, but you can see the dotted line there running out into Cardwell Bay before they built. So they've always been around for a very, very long time. Probably, I think the parish of Greenock was established in the 1500s. So I think at that point, it used to be the parish of Inverclyde, used to encompass Greenock as well. So if you wanted to go to church, people used to have to travel up from Largs and from Greenock to go to Inverclyde Parish Church. It was the only parish church about then, but from the 1500s on, Greenock established its own parish, and at that point they'd have had to establish the boundary, so I reckon that the wall was probably built there, and then built it out into the Cardwell Bay to establish the boundary.
Okay, so just a few images. So here we have Loch Thom as it is today. So that was a fairly recent drone shot from Alistair, again doing his magic, working his magic with the sky. He managed to actually recreate using his kind of fancy software a rendering of what Rottenburn would have looked like several hundred years ago, which is like that. And we can kind of superimpose the two. So during times of low water and drought, you can actually see the original Shaw's water course showing up again and still, visible. Here's another image that from Alistair.
Yeah, so again, Alistair he done a couple of things to try and establish what it would look like. So this is using bathymetrical data. So this is showing where the deep points in the loch are as well. And from there, he was able to garner a really, really accurate picture of how Shaw's water would have run from Rottenburn round down into before the compensation reservoir was built. Down into Shell Glen on its original course. So you've got what's interesting is you've got that wee section just below where the blue finishes there. You've got the dam wall, and just before that, you've actually got still got the original section of Shaw's water just before it goes into the compensation reservoir. So that's where it would have taken its natural course. So that's one of the few bits of the Shaw's water course that's still there. Before you hit Shell Glen, but it's obviously still original.
But we're trying to understand how they went about the construction of Loch Thom, and the issue with having a natural water course is if you're going to dam it, then you've got thousands of tons of water coming at you. So we surmise that the process Robert Thom used was to make a bypass cut to bypass the area where they were building the dam, and he used a natural stream course from a spring as a bit of a help out. So here we are. So here's a Google shot image, and water was coming out of spring to scour out that kind of channel there, and the kind of purple dots there would have been, what would have been cut out as a man-made feature to get to that point, and you can still see the land scar there, running down to the kind of natural runoff. We had a look at a few maps as well to see if we could see the bypass or by-lead showing up on maps, and Alan can talk to you about that just now. The writing's small in this, but it's annotated as the red dot. Yeah,
so we've got kind of two images there, but if you just see where the red dot is there, just above that, the map's a wee bit slightly confusing because it's on its side, but yeah, it's marked by-lead there, so that's where they took the water from Shaw's water and ran it down into the compensation reservoir and down Shell Glen, and that would have given them a dry area where they could have built the dam without having to worry about what they were going to do with Shaw's water. You can see it a bit clearer there, the right way up as well again. So you've got the dam just underneath the red dot, and just slightly to the right of it, you've got the by-lead, which would have taken the water from Shaw's water down into the compensation reservoir, and then down and round the cut, allowing it to build the dam.
So we actually went looking for the man-made by-lead or bypass cut, and even several hundred years on, it's still there and visible. Quite often vegetation is a help to us, so if you find lines in vegetation or circles in vegetation, it's a hint there's something there. It's barely visible, but it is there. You'll see a line running up, and the line that you'd expect to find it is a line in the reeds. Yeah, it runs it from the exit point of Loch Thom down to the point where the spring is. Background is absolutely awful for walking on, I can tell you. So just be careful if you decide to go up and investigate it. It's very mushy still. Alistair, not speaking tonight, but we're always happy to tout his input. So at points where we're trying to figure things out, he would go away and build sections with the loch for us, or model a bridge or a water course, or he would get the drone out for us, without his input. And his sort of special kind of knowledge in Loch Thom, I don't think we would have got anywhere near finding the things or understanding the kind of the loch the way we did come to understand it. And over to Alan again. But this is just, we're wrapping up here. Just this kind of other oddities, really, other kind of bits of the story before we finish up.
Yeah. So this was if I just start at the top left-hand corner there. So this was over near Killock End, in fact over close to where the roundhouse is on the shore. We found this piece of metal here. Alistair being a bit of a World War II buff was able to establish it was that is indeed a part of a World War II bomb. There's a huge crater again over there which was quite close by, which is usually underneath the water. It only gets exposed at one of its lowest points as well, but we reckon that's a piece of shrapnel or a piece of that bomb casing from that World War II bomb. So we managed to find that as well. This on the bottom left is what we dubbed the Lonely Wall, because it is a section of wall that doesn't seem to have any association with anything else on land. So quite often you'll have a field boundary wall which will run down from off the hillside and down onto the beach, if you like, for want of a better word, and then into the water, and you can follow that up. But this section of wall kind of puzzled us. It was made of a different type of stone. It was just sitting on its own. We don't know if it was part of a construction which they began and never finished, but it just kind of sits on its own. So we'd have had to dub that along the wall. Still do not have a clue what that is. Again, that's well underwater just now. And then to our right hand side as well, so the dot kind of nears the centre of the picture there, down from Killock End Farm. That's where Hut Circle on the beach. So across the bay from that, if you like, there are another two circles there. Those two circles were supposed to signify two other hut circles that were found by and recorded by Frank Newell, again back in the 1950s, I believe. And believe you me, we spent many a time walking down there just trying to find any sort of evidence of any of those at all, and we didn't found absolutely nothing. So those again were kind of a wee bit of an anomaly. We don't know if Frank's placed those two hut circles in the wrong place, and they've still got to turn up somewhere. So hopefully we'll come across them at some point. But yeah, there was kind of two of the things that didn't make sense to us, or two of the things that got away, if you like.
We're just about the end of the presentation, folks. So that this image here sort of sums up the level of work that went into this project. So we reckon that this is probably the most extensive survey of Loch Thom done since its construction. So all the kind of coloured dots there, red, purple, show you areas that we set foot on, took photographs, measured things, logged things, and you can see that we got around not just Loch Thom but the surrounding area as well. So there's a lot of kind of boot leather worn out doing that, but it was a labour of love, and we're finding things on an almost daily basis sometimes. So yeah, we're getting rewarded for your efforts, really. And this is where we kind of wrap things up. So this is a marble bust of Robert Thom. We reckon that Clyde Muirshiel Rangers have got this in loan from the council just now. And for whatever reason at the time, it was the fashion to have yourself cast as a Roman emperor, which is kind of, I don't know if there's maybe a link to the Roman nose, I don't know. But he signed off his letters with the lovely line, "I have the honour to be, sir, your most obedient and obliged humble servant," to the Shaws, when he was getting correspondence with him about the water scheme, and he touting the fact that it was going to be a successful scheme. So we have been your humble, obedient servants tonight, delivering the talk. And thanks for having us. And this is a point where we allow you to ask some questions or put some things to us if you have them.
Okay, thanks for that, both of you. It's been really interesting. I've walked these hills for years, and I'm afraid I never saw half of what you're seeing. Anyway, is there any questions?
Just one thing. Hi, just it's Lynette here. Just one thing that I was going to say. The two lads there mentioned Lawrence Virtue. Did you actually know Lawrence?
No, we never got to meet him in person.
I know him. I knew him.
Yeah,
I knew Lawrence because I went to school with his son, and I also worked with his daughter. And Lawrence was the nicest, most lovely man you would ever meet. A total gentleman. Yeah,
that's the universal thing that we've heard from folk. We know Wally Hutchison, who was a good friend of him, and I've heard nothing but nice things. He was actually friends with Tom Weir, the famous mountaineer, and so but I never got to meet him in person.
That is a shame. That is really a shame, because he was such an interesting man, but just an absolute gem. He really was an absolute gem, and he lived to a ripe old age, I'll tell you. So, but that's a shame you didn't get to meet him.
Okay. Any other questions?
Can I ask the two gentlemen? They discovered quite a number of roundhouses, and they seem to be quite widely scattered. And was that the pattern of habitation, as opposed to being in villages or clachans or hamlets? Were they in fact quite dispersed? And indeed, there seemed to be very few farms, considering the area in the sort of medieval period that they could find. And I'd be interested in that. My only comment would be on also, there's probably no connection between Shaws as opposed to the Shaws Stewarts and Shaws in Shaw's Farm. The word Shaws simply is Scots word for a copse, and the Shaw family of Greenock come from Clackmannanshire originally. So doubtless both of them were of the Shaws, and they were not necessarily the same woods. So there's no link there, I wouldn't think. But I'd be interested anyway in any comments concerning the habitation patterns that they discovered of roundhouses.
So I'll go. So can I just cover your last point first of all, because I find that really interesting. So you reckon? So when we look back at even the 1857 map of Shaw's Farm, even though it's in ruins, it does actually show there's quite a lot of trees about. So you think because it was situated in a copse of trees, copse meaning Shaws? Yeah,
I think that's possibly the truth. And as I say, the other Shaws, yes, they were in the Cummer family, in the 1439 was their first sort of area in this particular region. So I think probably their Shaws or some Shaws in Clackmannanshire, they were of the Shaws there. So yes. But that's very good that you're finding trees in a kind of copse around that farm. That would give it its name.
Yeah, they definitely show it. It definitely shows them. There seems to be quite a lot of them. Even the painting seems to be showing quite a lot of trees in that time. So that would make sense.
So thanks for your input. And regarding the sort of the settlement patterns. There are sections where the moorland has maybe been forested, for instance, where we know that we can see that there's quite a density of put circles together. So we're only finding the ones that are still observable, but they very rarely, it seemed, from our experience anyway, it's odd to find them as singular structures. And that would be the exception rather than the norm. They do seem to be more closely packed as a community, if you like.
Right.
And if you don't find them as a cluster, it's because they've been damaged, covered in heather, masked, and you don't see the other ones that are possibly there.
The biggest concentration of them, so we tend to find them now in no more than maybe 3s and 4s. But there was certainly much larger communities of them that have been destroyed, unfortunately. So the forestation of the Greif, there was collections of hut circles recorded in like 12, 13, 14 in a small space of area, which was very much getting on to a kind of bigger kind of community thing as well. But those seem to be a bit rarer than what we are finding now. And I don't think it's because they've been destroyed as such. I think those kind of larger communities weren't as common as the kind of clusters of 3s and 4s that we seem to be finding. Those communities of 12, 13, 14, 15 did exist, but they weren't uniform like that. It tends to be three or four hut circles you would kind of find together.
I think the total number of bits of structure for all of the Greif settings together, I think it was over 80, I think.
Yeah.
For all of them. So that's a high density of, structures and homes and dwellings, that's for sure. So it must have been a nice place. We tend to find that if you've got good sources of water, high up in a north-east facing aspect, you're going to find them. That's what we've been using as a good starting point. High up, close to water, facing northeast, out the prevailing wind.
Yeah. And people
interesting, isn't it? Cecile, do you want to put the display down so we can see if there's anybody else asking questions? The presentation.
If Stephen or Alan close off the PowerPoint.
Yeah, so just stop screen share.
PowerPoint, I can see. Ian will be with you in a minute. I can see you. That's better. Okay. I can see people now. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Ian, did you want to have a question there?
Yes, a question for Stephen. Has Stephen done any archaeology at the western end of Loch Thom, the fall, the eastern fall particularly, where there were a whole series of mills?
We've been down short sections of that, but we've not been down. In fact, trying to think coming down, that would be what, come down to Kip Water? Is that what you mean? We've found a mill down at Bankfoot, so that's one piece of structure we found, but I don't know if you mean as far down as that.
There was quite a series going down from Overfield, approximately north, a whole series of mills, one after the other.
We've been down to sort of Shahill Farm, Shahill Glen. I was actually looking for sections of Roman Road, as was Alan. So down sort of Shahill Glen is probably as far down that side, and then from the other side it's Bankfoot. So there's sections in the middle that is at the homesteads, which are quite precipitous, shall we say. We've not been down there. I know that's up for development for the hydro scheme, which is obviously a contentious issue as well. But so there's parts that we've just not visited down there yet. No.
I can see you meeting up with a lot of people to discuss things later on. Is there any other questions, Lorraine?
I don't know if it's more a question. I'm really in. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's kind of cutting up behind you.
Okay. I'm quite interested in the boundary wall for the parish. So, do you reckon then that this wall's kind of... Sorry, is that any better?
Yeah, a bit better now,
yeah. Just keep going. We'll get the gist of it, I think.
Yeah. Okay, the boundary wall, I'm really interested in that. First of all, is that included in your tour? Because I keep trying to come, haven't been yet, but I'm very interested in following the line of that boundary wall. So you're reckoning that this is sort of, mid-16th century wall that you found the parish boundary?
Yeah, that's right. We've followed a good section of it in one of the more recent tours up to Garvett Cairn. So as you come up Greif Water, that wall would be just off to your right, we've followed sections of it as visible, on that tour, but we've not followed the whole thing in its entirety. No. And there's
sections of it to see all the time. So if you were leaving the old Labs Road and walking over towards Killock End Farm. So just at this, do you know where I am? So there's
roughly, yeah.
There's the signpost from Old Largs Road, and that.
Yeah, I'm thinking of So basically, I've probably seen parts of the wall and not realised what it was.
Yeah, you definitely would have.
Yeah, I'm really very interested.
As I said, you've got to kind of go through it. If you're walking towards Killock End Farm, just at the start, if you're just leaving the Old Largs Road, you go through you cross over a gate, and the gate's actually the gate to the wall that runs along the length of the gate. It's actually the parish wall, so that's you crossing over from Greenock to Inverclyde at that point, and it runs that way. There's another section of it that runs into the Greif number 1 as well. You see a section of wall that runs from just before the entrance. If you were to park your car to get into the Greifs, down at the kind of lower side of the Loch Thom Dam, where you enter to get into what farm is that again? Dowries Farm. The road into Dowries Farm, and into the Greif number 1 reservoir. It's only kind of way in you can get into the Greif. But in there, there's
I'm not sure, but
in there, there's a section of wall there that runs right into the Greif as well, which because the parish boundary used to predates the Greifs as well, obviously. So there's a wall that runs into the water, but that's definitely part of the parish boundary, the boundary wall as well. And it comes out near Dowries Farm, and then
You're breaking up, Lorraine. We can't hear you very well.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I couldn't hear anybody there.
Oh, you can hear us?
You'll just have to have a visit into the museum and meet Lorraine.
And Angela, yeah, I can hear you guys.
It's not down as a planned tour. It's not down as a planned tour to do the whole of the wall. You're going to be quite high up in that, moving to the south of Loch Thom, and we've got a kind of crowd of folk that are coming out there fairly fit, and even for them it would be a bit of a stretch. So we've been up around good sections of it, but I think it'd be quite an arduous wee route to be doing the whole thing. But certainly short sections you would see in some of the other tours that we're doing. If you wanted to see them, we could let you know what ones you're likely to see it. But it's unfortunate because the Dowries tour, you were going to be walking along about a mile of it. So it's just been. So anyone else got stuff to ask?
Any other questions? Nope. Well, I can see this as a work in progress. Well, Christine, sorry.
I've got a question, but it's not for our time teamers, it's for Ian. There aren't many Ian Parsons who are architects, so would I be right in thinking you've just won a RIBA award?
Yeah, it was yes, RIAS.
Sorry, RINAS, sorry. Well done.
In association with the RIBA, yes.
Congratulations. Thank you. That was my question.
Well done. Okay, so as you say, it's a work in progress. So I think we'll book you for next year and see what else you've managed to get up together by then.
The next planned talk, which is a work in progress, is the prehistoric settlers of Inverclyde. So that's we're doing that for the Walk with Clay Museum. So that's the next kind of work as a talk, if you like, that we're doing, and that'll be ready in the autumn. So that may be another one to do for you.
Yep. We'll be back.
Could I just say I listened and watched this in the Watt, and I've watched it online, and I actually found it better to follow, easier to follow and see the images online rather than
online. Yeah, so did I, Christine.
Yeah, there's the limit would be, how far away you are from the projector screen and all that. And whilst it's nice being a big, nice building, we accept that sometimes if you're further away, it's not ideal, and it's better to be sitting in front of a screen if you're looking at some of the images that we've got, for sure. So thanks for the feedback. We can now know how it translates online.
Yeah, we got feedback. I think when we done the presentation in the Walk Museum, we were doing it under the assumption that our pointers were, everybody was following our pointers, and then we found out afterwards that the pointers weren't visible to everybody in the room, people sitting at the back. So we were saying, if we follow this line here, assuming people knew what we were talking about. So yeah, so that
It's nice to compare the two different formats, and when people say they don't like Zoom, I can now say, well, I've experienced both. I enjoyed the presentation in the WOT as well, because there was atmosphere, and you would obviously be getting feedback from the members of the public who were going, ooh, that's interesting, but it's different, I presume, on Zoom. But for me, it gives a clearer image of up close to some of the maps and stuff that we were looking at earlier.
Good to know, useful feedback. Thanks.
But they did say that was the busiest talk they'd had for a long time in the Philosophical Society. So you certainly brought the crowd that night. So you should be congratulated for that as well. I mean, Christine and I have gone quite a few times, and the most I've had is about 20. You know yourself that night, there was, what, about 40, 50?
It was full to capacity, so we'll say bring your own folding chair just in case I get in early for the sofas. Don't come in late.
I think it was 664. I think it was 63 or 64.
I knew there was a lot. You know, it was a really good night. I enjoyed it, but I think Christine's right. You see more detail, you know, when you're seeing it online. Well, anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was a really good night, and we worried about people not staying, you know, till the end, but as you can see, most of the people have stayed, although I think there's more on.
Just give them a nudge after we go.
As we went, you know, but it's been really good, and thank you. But keep in touch, because it will be good to hear your next stage of the story, and we're all very interested in it.
That's great. We'll see you again at some point.
Keep enjoying it, you know, keep enjoying it, because that's what the main thing is, isn't it?
Yeah, we certainly enjoy it. So glad to hear you guys do as well.
Yeah, well, no, we certainly did.